Thank you for the introduction, Mark. All right, so hi guys. I suppose I've already been introduced. Good morning. I am here to talk to you guys about private space and the next generation, if it comes up. That is not, there we go. It was up a second ago. There we go. All right, so I've been thinking a lot over the last couple of weeks about how to start this talk, how to get you guys as excited as I am about the future of this generation and space exploration. And as I've been thinking about this, I stumbled across an old video from a SEDS chapter at UC San Diego of one of their rocket launches. And I thought it really perfectly captures the atmosphere that I hope to fill this room with. So without further ado, I want to start with that. All right, so I hope that got you guys a little bit closer to how thrilled I am, in case you guys forget what it's like to have a success like that. Because, you know, especially when you're working in science research, breakthroughs are hard to come by, but when they do come, it is so worth it. So what I'm going to try to do in my short time is convince you that there is an urgency to getting private space to interact more with the next generation, and that it's actually hurting the industry that we don't do it more. And I hope to inspire all of you individually to go out tonight or early next week and actually try to reach out to some students. Oh no. All right, so the time is now, right? I hope you guys have noticed that the title of this conference is the Dawn of Private Space Science, and it truly is a dawn. We are entering a new era in space exploration. We've seen a surge in private industry, which of course started with the Ansari X Prize. You guys just heard from Greg about what that did for the industry. And of course there was a question surrounding why there aren't a ton of suborbital flights now. But in a way, the X Prize did launch, just not the way that we expected. It did launch the industry. It paved the way for private companies like SpaceX and made private space exploration a reality. So I don't think that in that sense it was a failure, because it just gave us something different from what we expected. So you have companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin. You guys are all very aware of the state of the industry now. We have a boom in satellite companies. Over here I've included a little GIF that's a great visualization for the number of satellites in orbit since we launched Sputnik in 1957. As you can see, it's actually become a bit of a problem. It's a little crowded up there. But basically there has been, this huge surge in the industry, and of course along with that, a surge in private science research, which is what this whole conference is about. You're going to hear later from Professor Scharf, who works here at Columbia. I sent him a tweet the other day asking him how old the astrobiology program at Columbia is. And I also checked out some other programs at schools like Princeton, and it turns out they're all formed in about the last decade, right? So you're seeing a sudden resurgence and an interest in studying extraterrestrial life forms. A lot of the new science research is, of course, funded by increased data access, open source work, the ability that scientists have more than ever to communicate with each other. And perhaps most importantly, or controversially most importantly, is the surge in media, right? It's already been mentioned a bit, but the increased media coverage, seeing SpaceX's launches every day in the newspaper. You wake up, you check the news, it's another launch, it's another success. Elon Musk is practically a celebrity. All the movies, Interstellar got mentioned earlier. You have The Martian, Hidden Figures, getting the public really excited about space exploration. And if you think of all these things coming together, I think you start to get a really clear picture of how much this era is going to change the way that we interact with space. All right, so it's worth noting that the average astronaut candidate is 34 years old, which means that our Mars 2030 astronauts are in college right now, born in 1996, like me. Who knows, maybe it will be me. But basically, these students are just arriving on the scene. They're just arriving into the industry. They're still going through school. So who are we? Students are the future of space. And I think that the best example of how students are coming together, of how much students care about space, is SEDS. I'm sure, how many of you guys know what SEDS is? Okay, so that's most of you. So we're the largest student-run space advocacy organization in the world. We have 70+ chapters. We've added 10s just within the last few years. So really growing at a pace that's bigger than we've ever experienced before. It's not just in the US. We have international branches, SEDS India, SEDS Canada, SEDS UK. But I think most notably, and probably something that might be surprising to some of you, is that 20% of SEDS students aren't actually STEM majors. And I hope that you guys take a second to think about what that means for the industry. Because, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, I think it's really hurting the industry that we ignore and aren't able to reach out and talk to the students who aren't in STEM majors, but who want to make a difference in the aerospace industry, who are passionate about space. Because it takes more than an engine and a rocket to get to space, right? It takes our public policy makers. It takes our economics experts. And unless we're reaching out to these students, we won't be achieving the full potential of what space exploration could be like in the future. Yale, where I come from, the small trade school in New Haven, has Yale Aerospace. And if you really want to get an idea of how interested students are in space exploration, Yale Aerospace was started back up only less than a decade ago, I think, and now we're the largest engineering organization on campus. A campus that has no aerospace engineering major. That's how much students care about space exploration. You're going to hear after me some students from the Space Generation Advisory Council. They do really great work with supporting international space policy, thousands of members from over 90 countries. I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong on any of those. But they are taking an actual official position as a consultant to the United Nations. So basically, students have a really large voice already, but they're not interacting enough with the industry. In terms of younger students, you have programs like First Robotics and Girls Who Code that start to train and get younger students interested in the fields that they want to go into. Of course, we don't just need aerospace engineers anymore. We need computer scientists and robotics experts and electrical engineers. So that is who we are. This is a great photo of us. You can see me on the right there doing a little Charlie's Angel pose with my friend. You can see we're a very serious organization. All right, so in thinking about what would be informative to you guys, I'm guessing you don't just want to hear about model rockets, although the one I showed you at the beginning was pretty cool. It made UCSD the first university to launch a liquid fuel rocket with a 3D printed engine. So that was the background on the launch you saw at the beginning there. But the project that I'm most excited about from a SEDS chapter is their CubeSat project. If they succeed in getting the funding they need, it will be the first CubeSat with a chemical propulsion system and the first satellite propelled by a 3D printed engine to orbit the moon. These are college students building a satellite that will orbit the moon. In terms of what Yale does, not quite as exciting though. We do have a CubeSat, but it's not going to orbit the moon. Last year I worked on our bit of a biology project with our last rocket, collecting bacterial samples from the atmosphere and sequencing genomes, which involved a lot of biology students who care about space. Again, talking about that kind of academic diversity. You can see a little plot of the phase that UCSD expects their satellite to take. And here's a little one of Yale's launches. All right, so to convince you that there needs to be change, I want to explain the way things are now. What's the state of the industry? How much collaboration is going on between private space and the next generation? So again, what I think is the best conduit between private space and the next generation is SEDS, because it's an organization that students voluntarily join because they care so much about space. So I think it's the best way for the industry to reach out to these students. So the biggest way I think that we do that is with our annual conference, Space Vision, where hundreds of students come from all over the country and companies will sponsor and come and talk to the students. We have some past Space Vision speakers in the audience, I believe. And it's a great way for the industry to connect with students, but again, it's not enough. This interaction is too sparse for what students need. Another thing to mention notably this year is the Brooke Owens Fellowship, which awards paid internships to exceptional young women in space science. Again, we're seeing progress, but it's not enough, right? So what are the shortcomings? Overall, it's just that it's not enough. I'm sure you guys have all known students who have created exceptional projects with potential to be just absolutely incredible, who can't get the funding that they need, who don't get the mentors that they need. And that's a huge problem, because when they go into the industry after a few years of college, they won't have the experience that they could have had. And fixing that problem, I think, will do wonders for speeding up that time frame, what we keep talking about, speeding up the process of getting data from space. I believe that the best way to do that is to make the transition smoother between generations. This will involve more participation of universities, more people doing mentorship, more professors, as there are many in the audience, allowing undergraduates to sit with them as they do their research. And a big problem that I want to focus on here and come back to is diversity. Now, I'm not talking about ethnic diversity or gender diversity. I'm talking about academic diversity. Private space is not reaching out to non-STEM students effectively. And that's something that needs to change if the industry wants to move forward at a faster pace. All right, so what can you do for the next generation right now? I am so lucky to be here because it is you guys who have the power to make a difference. Mentor kids, offer internships, let kids sit alongside you while you do your research if they can't participate. Make personal connections with students that last a lifetime if you can. I'm sure all of you, especially professors who have students, have had those kind of relationships. Try to have them more because students are really starving for mentorship. Reach out. Pick up the phone and call your local high schools, your local universities. Talk to their student activities office. Ask if they have a FIRST Robotics chapter or a SEDS chapter. Students are starving for mentorship, they're starving for funding, but they don't know how to ask for help. They don't know who to ask for help. So it's your job to reach out to them. And this is us asking for your help right now. The other thing you can do is donate, and I'll throw up a link at the end to donate to the SEDS-USA CubeSat project. You can donate to SEDS. That money goes directly to students for scholarships and grants and conferences like Space Vision. It's just a shame that I've seen so many wonderful projects get thrown in the trash because students don't have the knowledge, don't have the mentorship, or don't have the money to do what they want. All right, so I will leave and open up for questions with these final thoughts, that our time is now, our students are our future, and a symbiotic relationship is necessary between private space and the next generation if we want to achieve that increased rate of space exploration that all of us so desperately want. This mission depends on you. So open for questions, yes.
I so much resonate with your points, and let me throw a possible project what
Absolutely.
is perfect for students. The bottleneck will be secure space communication. Yeah, when we get our dreams right. You can do it right now. There is no barrier.
That's true. Yes.
Thank you, Olivia, for speaking up about students, especially non-STEM majors. I guess I don't have as much of a question for you, but looking out at the people who what is it that students can do that would help you be incentivized to connect with us?
Anyone can answer that.
Please. I'll be here tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, so. You have any ideas?
Well, I can say in my case, it's the only way I get anything done. Because I have no funding for my work in this field because NASA doesn't like to support it. That's why I normally get funding. But I used to advertise to students at Harvard in astronomy, which is what I am, an astronomer. And when I was doing supermassive black holes at the edge of the universe, they weren't very interested. As soon as I said, how about mining small rocks in space, they come flooding, knocking on my door every semester. So there's plenty of interest out there, and I make great use of it because I get a lot of work done that way.
Yeah, so we are working with students from high school, undergraduates, graduate students. All they have to do is ask and be excited. So there's no barrier. We love to work with students.
Well, then to add on to her question, what is the best way to reach you guys? What compels you? How do we figure out who's the best person to contact? If you're not someone who can, afford to come to a conference like this and do networking and talk to people.
Contact me.
All right.
Perhaps you need Mark's vetted center.
Yes.
Online
Yes,
thing.
yes,
For this as well.
yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say, we often see a lot of students volunteering at conferences like this. A great opportunity for reaching out to a broader range of folks. And even if you can't make it to the conference, there's tons of folks live tweeting here. A lot of people connecting via social media, really easy way with webcasts to find out who the right voices are.
Yeah, for what it's worth, anything you guys say here will get back to all the students in SEDS eventually. If you want to see more volunteers, I'll let them know. Yes.
And the National Space Society has a new educational program, Enterprise in Space, which is designed specifically to get industry leaders and professors and students together on contests to fly experiments in space. So I'll talk with you about that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
One of the real problems I see addressing your need for funding for these types of projects is at universities there are development offices. Their job is to raise money. The problem is they don't work with undergraduates, and undergraduates are only there for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you've no into the established how do we find funding structures. I think that's a gap that needs to be filled.
Absolutely.
It's completely a gap right now.
Absolutely.
I disagree. So there are many state universities that actually have, and going through these development offices is awesome.
Yes, the state
approach.
universities are generally
Students,
better about that.
Undergraduates come to me all the time. They're a little bit more brave, perhaps, than a lot of their fellow undergraduates. But I know every single person at the university who's doing some aspect of space. And if they're not technical students, I send them into the arm of the university that is working with scientists to develop narrative, for instance, around why is this important, or the journalism school that has a science arm that's looking at how do we introduce and discuss science to the public. So the opportunities beyond merely being part of the traditional research, sort of funded, peer-reviewed, need to be there for a certain amount of time, are huge if you are willing to lean into the research arm of your university. And it might take, there's often barriers there, it might take a little bit of persistence.
Well, turnover is a big barrier, right? That first rocket launch that I opened with took, I think, 3 generations of UCSD students to build it. So again, it's that intergenerational communication that makes projects like those possible. I think that's a great model for the real world, but it also makes funding difficult.
The other thing you can do is propose to your development organizations, because there are donors who actually are activated not by the science but by the idea of supporting the students.
Yes, absolutely.
And putting together unique offerings, combining students with your development offices is not done very often, but is definitely something that could be attempted.
Yes?
One area where there could be some development is simply educating yourselves about development, because there are gaps in understanding how fundraising works among constituencies at universities. Often the students don't know, postdocs don't know, graduate students don't know, because it's typically the faculty that use those resources. And is SEDS itself a 501c3?
Yes.
Okay, so that then you have an inbuilt mechanism that if there is longevity of leadership or consciousness of the need to fundraise, you can build that way.
Yes.
But it is a bit of a gap.
And how are we doing on time?
I think we have time for one more question. Yeah.
I just want to share that here at Columbia, we have the Columbia Space Initiative.
Yes.
It was an initiative that was put together by students and started about a couple of years ago. And has been very successful in bringing on board not only STEM students, STEM faculty, but myself, for instance, I have a faculty appointment at the School of International Public Affairs. And about a month ago, the Columbia Space Initiative put together this space policy conference, and we had someone from the Air Force, someone an astronomer, former astronaut who was a professor here. So it was very interdisciplinary. And I think that's a way for you guys to affect not only faculty and students, but also to engage the university community more widely.
Yeah, Columbia Space Initiative is fantastic. I encourage you guys all to look into it. I know the students leading it decently well, and it really is a good example of why this time is so exciting. All right. Thank you guys so much.